COVID is exactly what it sounds like. Co-video system. It's AI technology, but it's not human. An acquired position at a very important government entity. White House, the Pentagon are all informed of this information. Had acquired a beautiful position here in Seattle at a very important government entity, and didn't take very long to recognize a lot of my other studies, time and physics specifically, became less of defined interests of my own pursuits and more prescribed divisions of my academia. So, meditations, brain workouts. If you think about going to the gym and you need to go work out your biceps, you'll spend a couple days on your routine. Say I'm going to put biceps in on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and that'll keep them in strong condition and full of muscle tissue so that they continually grow. And I'll repeat that for say a month. The same is true with meditation, and the process is really similar. You're there to build brain muscles in specific parts of the brain, much like building a set of muscles on the body. Specific parts of the brain have to develop to be able to cognitively communicate first with types of evolved and heightened consciousness beings, specifically through telepathy, and that is a prerequisite for communicating, is that you have to develop your telepathy muscles. So, like going to the gym and building biceps, you need to exercise your telepathy muscles frequently and often. Living here on Earth gives us one perspective. If you live in another part of the galaxy, your days aren't the same. They're not even related. Extraterrestrial organism, or whatever organism your body is, might not even be clocked the same, so that when you come and visit here, you experience time in completely different spans of your perception and consciousness. They made it clear time travel and time adjustment, I'd say customization to some extent, is a really real technology that is used here on Earth daily, along with a lot of other equipment, energies, and non-terrestrial technology. So let me talk about communication channels. Telepathy, brain-to-brain communication. It's not always just a brain communicating to another brain. It might be the brain through another form of computer system and relayed to another being or entity. The main method here on Earth, though, and I think this is kind of universal to our species, is going to be a chakra evolution. And that's where you get to see full colors, really powerful energies, ESP or birth extrasensory perception. In modern education, there is not as much focus on this because of its ephemeral nature that exists. That if you do not have functional chakras, it's hard to perceive them. If you have functional chakras, it's very easy to perceive other people's chakras and energy. Kind of like learning how to walk. It's not something all people are just born with. Some people have to grow them, and there's different ways to grow them, and there's also ways that they degenerate. If you, like the muscles, if you don't go and work them out, they just aren't there. Chakras, even as a child, I think, we just had a lot of spirituality and mysticism kind of like encapsulated with it. Not to mention the roots of it in Hinduism, in Sanskrit, and also in Judaism. So there's a lot of religious backgrounds to them, but everything can have a religious background to it. That doesn't necessarily define it as religious, though. So I had to approach it scientifically, with less devotion, more of a science. So the way I've kind of learned to comprehend how that chakra science exists, I think has to do with the water in our body and the way that light refraction casts different layers of color continually. You can find that in a prism when it's raining and there's light out. You have a bow of light in specific colors. That's evolved with us over time. So it's part of our DNA. It's not going to change. It's just part of the fundamental part of what we are in one aspect. So it's kind of like a platform. If you start with chakras, you can evolve them. So how do you use telepathy? You learn to talk really loudly and really well and really strong in your brain. There's other methods to it as well. We need to look at modern day chakra users. For maybe the average person, they're going to be very hidden. You're not going to recognize it as much. Because the moment that you have them and you use them, a fun little thing happens. The non-terrestrial beings can literally just scan your body and be like, look, this person's using chakras, this person's not. Deliberately starts grouping you with chakra people. In society, that's depicted with royalty, kings and queens. So you look at a king or a queen, they're covered in jewelry, parts of earth, diamonds and sapphires and rubies, built into different things. You've got crowns and staves and scepters, and if you're a modern day human, you might not have $1 billion to spend on royal jewelry. That doesn't discount how effective it is. Say you've been using royal jewelry for maybe you're 50 years old and you have been growing a brain that can interact with royal jewelry for 50 years. Your chakra powers are going to be beyond human. It's just going to be obvious to someone who doesn't live on the planet. They're going to look at your brain differently. They're going to treat you differently and interact with you differently because you've had a different type of education. So the physical human body has had to change in some sense. The DNA is physically evolved with the equipment. There's other ways to it. So, for example, I found this on Etsy. It's a simple third eye chakra crown. You can actually just make it out of wire jewelry. There's a handful of different elements that are really described in many different texts to be highly related to psychic parts of the brain. And you can research this. Different attributes and different abilities follow with specific types of stones and earth technology. That's why kings and queens don't just have one crown, they have masses of jewelry, because each different piece of jewelry physically does something different to the brain over time, and you have to grow those parts of the brain.